It's recording now.
We're now live. Okay.
Thanks, Kathy.
So, hello everyone, and welcome to today's session. And we're presenting a hot topic today that's highly relevant to the banking and finance world right now: digital banking and advanced analytics in the GCC. So before we delve into the presentation, I'd just like to share a few housekeeping notes about today's session with you. We will have a question and answer box open throughout the entire presentation, so please do type any questions you may have about any of the topics we're discussing during the presentation itself. And that's the Q&A box that should be located at the bottom of your screen. Then, towards the end, we will be directing your questions from the Q&A box directly to our speaker panel. And that's so they can share their insight and comments verbally and answer your questions. And we'd love to hear from you. We have the chat box on the right-hand side, so just use this for any other feedback, whether it's technical or audio issues, admin requests, or any other question that you may have that's not directly related to the topics today. So a quick recap: your topical questions for the speakers, type them in the Q&A. Anything else, type it in the chat box. And just to let you know, we'll also be having a few interactive quick polls throughout the session. And that's just to capture some of the trends relating to your company and your own experience of this era of digital transformation. You should see the quick poll appear on your screen each time we launch a poll, and we'll give you around 15 to 20 seconds of time for you to read the question and log your response. And straight afterwards, we will share the quick poll results with you instantly, live. Finally, I just want to inform you that we are recording today's session. A recorded version of this webinar will be available later on demand, and we'll share the sign-in details through our respective LinkedIn pages. So be sure to follow us. And for those of you joining just now, a very warm welcome to you. And so let's get started and open the presentation. So many of you already know Aion Digital or Qarar, or both of us, and how our business partnership came about. But for those of you who are new to us, I'll briefly share our background. So Aion Digital is a Bahrain-based fintech company operating throughout the GCC. And Aion builds digital banks from the ground up. They assist traditional banks transform into fully digital banks through a bespoke platform and product suite. And Aion also helps their clients leverage their data and access new data to enable them to become completely customer-centric. And about Qarar, Qarar's an advanced analytics and credit risk management company based in Dubai and operating independently under parent company SEMA, the Saudi Credit Bureau. Qarar provides software, solutions, and advisory to the banking and finance sector and has clients all over the Middle East and Pakistan, and is now expanding its reach to other industries and regions. With this partnership, the company's solutions and services fit together seamlessly. Basically, Aion's created a digital lending platform, and Qarar's decision engine is the power behind it. And next slide. And I'd now like to introduce today's presenters to you. From Aion Digital, let me introduce Amir Janjua. Amir is the Chief Product Officer, and prior to joining Aion, he was a Global Transformations Business Leader at NCR Corporation. Amir leads a product team to drive customer engagement and platform adoption. He has over 20 years of experience in building digital products and capabilities with blue-chip companies. And he's been credited with delivering various multi-million-dollar digital transformation initiatives across 4 continents. And our second speaker is Zaid Kamhawi, who's the CEO of Qarar. And Zaid's at the helm of driving the corporate strategy and direction of Qarar. He has established Qarar as a major in its field, and his long-term vision, innovation, and focus on the company's operations has resulted in very significant growth. Zaid also brings 20 years of experience, and he's managed organizations in finance analytics, credit management, consulting, all across the GCC. Okay, next slide. A very quick glance at our agenda today. Amir will focus on digital banking and its potential for totally transforming the lending sector. And then he'll hand over to Zaid, who will talk about the vital role of advanced analytics, the power that drives digital platforms. And at the end, we will have our Q&A session. So before we start, we have a quick question for you all as attendees. Bear with me one moment. Okay, so the question is, where is your primary place of work? Is it mostly back at the office, mostly working from home? Are you splitting time between the office and home? Or are you working in other locations, such as cafes and hotels? Or maybe you're really embracing digital innovation and you're totally mobile and working remotely. We'll just give you another 5 seconds, to put in your answer in the quick poll, and then we'll share the results. Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. Well, this is very interesting. 30% of you are mostly back at the office. 45% of you, that's the highest number, are mostly working from home. 15% of you are splitting time between home and office. No one's working at other locations, cafes and hotels. I guess that's not surprising with a lot of social distancing rules still in place in our GCC countries. And this is interesting. 10% of you are totally mobile and working remotely. So I wonder if that'll be a growing trend. Interesting. So, and without any further ado, let's jump straight into the knowledge sharing session right now. Over to Amir.
Thanks, Kathy. Much appreciated for the intro, and welcome everyone to the session. Really looking forward to this learning opportunity for all of us. So I think, next slide, please. So I think let's kind of quickly dive into the whole kind of a session. You know, the whole idea, I will be kind of talking about some key kind of focus areas for the digital banking in the GCC region. We'll be taking you through the journey, and also then kind of handing over to Zaid, as Kathy mentioned, to take a more deeper step into the analytics itself. So, you know, I think it's kind of it's a very well-known fact, right? That things are changing. But the way I see that is banking is all about trust, and it's all about customer trust. But it's very important to consider that this trust balance is shifting. And when I say this trust balance is shifting, it's basically shifting from, you know, the traditional human interaction, face-to-face interaction, very physical, to very much digital and into a virtual world, actually. I think that's what the migration is happening at the moment. Very interestingly, this kind of a survey we have just kind of done at the start of this kind of presentation, obviously this COVID-19 has accelerated that kind of shift. I would call it a paradigm shift. So a paradigm shift, the way I see this is a fundamental shift from how we do banking today or have been doing in the last decade to the next kind of a generation banking. So it's all about moving from one kind of a spectrum to the next spectrum, and very kind of, it's very critical to make sure we, as a banking industry, because I know quite a few of the colleagues today joined in, they are basically connected to the banking industry. So I think it's very critical for us to really understand, acknowledge this, and then kind of really take some measures to really make it happen as we go along with the flow, as we go along with the customer expectations. So important to understand why this shift is happening. So I think, there are multiple reasons for that. If you just kind of stick to top three, I think the top three would be consumers are moving forward. When I say moving forward, there's very different type of expectation from their financial services. I can tell you in a minute why that is. Then it's all about the big techs and fintechs coming in. And finally, we are talking about some regulators some of the regulators are very progressive regulators, and they're trying to bring this competition in the market and at the same time bringing some innovation along with this competition in the market. So combination of all these three factors, the things have been moving from very much physical to location-based, moving into very much virtual and a digital-based kind of a banking. And I'll just give you a couple of examples. For example, think about the population growth, right? Think about the urbanization. So I think globally it's 73%, urbanization now, but different regions have different kind of numbers. But if you think about very specific to GCC, it's basically close to 80% now. And I think what they're expecting, in the next 20 years, it would be very much close to 90% urbanization. If you think about the mix of population, it's a big kind of a number is now millennials and Gen Z. So I think combination of these two kind of generations, it just forms a big number in the banking kind of a sector. And this is one of those kind of generations which are really born and brought up with this kind of a digital native kind of a space or era. Then on top of it, you think about GAFA. So how everyday change, everyday interaction with Google, Apple, Amazon, and Facebook, they're really totally transforming how we engage with technology. So when I start talking about trust, that is the trust I'm talking about, where we as a consumer start having more trust on technology to start, living a life driven by technology. Things like, if you think about Amazon, there is nothing you can't find on Amazon actually, but I think we are very comfortable in finding and delivering that through Amazon. Just imagine Amazon Prime, right? One of the best, successful loyalty programs at the moment in the world, actually, Amazon Prime. I think roughly 150 million customers, and that's what driving, this innovation, and that's what driving that revenue for Amazon at the moment. Just imagine how we even order food today. Just imagine how we really, talk to and share our sentiments as well. Just think about our emotional sentiments. This kind of specifically this generation, millennials and Gen Z, just imagine how do even they express themselves using this digital technology. So, and I think finance is not really far behind. So if you think about all these fintechs and new businesses coming in, so if you think about challenger banks, just for example, take an example of Europe. At this stage, the 16 most valuable fintechs or unicorns in Europe, combined value of them is around $44 billion. So I think that's kind of a bigger story actually, how things are changing and how all of this shift, which is enabled by technology at scale, it's building trust with customer. And at the end, what it's delivering a hyper-personalized financial services with speed, but at a friction of a cost of what we do today. So next slide, please. So just kind of I think there's a quick kind of audience question now, Kathy. I think you will be putting this in front of the audience. So yeah, very interesting. So very much connected to the digital banking kind of a journey. So in your opinion, what do you think, what percentage of banks do you believe are not ready for the digital services? And I think let's kind of take a few seconds. And apologies for the background noise, as I'm one of those working from home as well. Okay, I think we have done the survey. Very interesting. So, I've got the results back as well. So I think, when we say not ready for the digital services, most of you, like more than 50% of you said that's what the case is basically. So I think what you really believe is, 50% of the banks are not ready for the digital services. So, and then the next closest, okay, I think survey is closed, but I think the majority, I think we got the answer right. Imelda, we can go to the next slide, please. So very interesting actually, because it's very much aligned to what we have been talking to our customers as well. So, as you know, Qarar and Aion very much kind of strategic partners. So Qarar kind of really went out with a survey to understand how, especially in this COVID-19 situation, how the financial services kind of our customers are responding to that. And we got a very clear kind of understanding from them. And, I'm so glad to see that survey result because it's very much aligned to that. So 55%, obviously this, survey covered, more bigger kind of space, but one of the focus area was around digital banking as well and how ready you think you are. 55% of our customer responses, they were that they are kind of really planning for it, or they are in kind of in a space where they really want to be moving to the next kind of a generation of digital banking. Only 18%, they kind of really believe that they have achieved some kind of a maturity in offering these digital services to the customer. So I think in the market, if you look at the sentiment, it's very much along the same lines as what comes across from this survey kind of outcome as well. So one example how it's been accelerated, a very simple example connected to the financial services. I can just pick an example from Bahrain actually. Benefit Pay, it's a national digital wallet in Bahrain. They recently revealed around 1200% growth in the usage of remittance using their platform, payment platform. And it's just happened in March 2020. That's, they just kind of revealed this recently. I think that's kind of a shift we are looking towards. And, we've been talking about this trust on the technology. If you combine that trust with this COVID-19 situation, that's basically accelerating it, multiplying, it multiple X actually to take that kind of a transformation for the customer. So, and then again, this survey result is not very much different to what we have been talking to our customers as well. So, as you know, Aion is a very strong kind of a player, a fintech into a retail and digital banking platform, and which is enabled by, AI and lifestyle banking. So we basically see that massive surge in the market. There is a massive gap on what the service should be from digital perspective and where we are as a whole, as a banking industry or financial services industry to enable that kind of a service. Also, I think there's another way of looking at this kind of result as well. Typically when banks, some of the banks, they believe they're ready, they're most of the times they're talking about front end. Very few kind of financial institutions talk about this, rapid digitization, and then very few really talk about digital native kind of a transformation, where all your processes, all your kind of solutions, all your data layers, security layer, technology layer, all of these layers and customer layers, most importantly, are all interconnected, and they're basically ready to offer this very innovative solution on the go. I think very low number of kind of banks within the region or financial institutions are at that stage yet. Can we move to the next slide, please? Again, another interesting survey is coming up very quickly. So this is quite interesting. I know I did touch base on this, part before in my first slide. What percentage of GCC population do you think millennials and Gen Z account for? So I didn't kind of say the number before, but I think it would be really good to hear from you on what do you think, what kind of a number that millennials and Gen Z kind of a generation makes up in the GCC region. We can close it down into a few seconds. 3, 2, 1. I think we can close it down. Wow, really great stuff. So again, very much aligned. I'm so glad that all the participants, are very much aligned on where we're heading off with this kind of a conversation. So very true. The results came out as more than 50%. Majority of the people said more than 50%. So I think around 48% said it's more than 50%. Some said 35% said around 30 to 50%, but I think majority is kind of, they do understand that the whole dynamics are shifting. And I'm just closing this. The whole dynamics is shifting, and basically it's around 60%. We looked at different kind of numbers and figures, look at different sources, but it's around 60% where these new kind of a generation, these two new generations are really making the most of the banking services, and they are the ones which are we can call digital native. Can you go to the next slide, please? So interesting thing to think about, and we are talking about today, we are talking about enabling trust with customers. And, when we say enabling trust, it's all about how we can enable technology trust with the customer. So there's a rapid adoption, and obviously COVID-19 is definitely helping us. The whole idea is, if it's shifting, it's quite evident from, I think there are certain kind of surveys have happened recently. And if you think about the PwC recent survey, they are kind of really talking about the huge expectation gap between, the FIs and, financial institutions and where customer thinks they are basically. Most financial institutions, for one reason or other, they are still kind of really doing some band-aid kind of stuff, just kind of trying to build some wrapper around their legacy infrastructure. I think it's happening at the time right now, but I think questions to us basically as industry kind of colleagues, learners, or leaders, on do we have some basics in place, right? When I say basics in place, do we understand our customers? When I say understand customer segmentation, a very basic thing, and it's all connected to data. I have seen multiple times, we do segment our customers, but it's so generic that we cannot offer any meaningful kind of a service to the customer. So are we there yet? Do we think the services we provide, are they in the right spot, right kind of experience space? Do we think if customer complains to us about anything, do we think we address it in the right way? Do we have the right kind of a glass piping across the organization, so any colleague within the bank or financial institution can see what complaint was raised and what's the status of that complaint is? And a very simple example, everybody I think knows that change is constant, right? It's continuously changing. So the idea is, if I have as a customer taken a credit card today, I'm sure that credit card might not be relevant for me in the next 2 years or 3 years or 5 years, because my situation is totally changing. My life is changing. My dynamics are changing. My family life is changing. So does that mean I've given something to a customer a few years back still relevant to them? Or do I need to really be working very closely with the customer to make sure that I offer them the right service at the right time for the right reason? So, looking at this survey, it's very much aligned to what we have been doing. So within Aion, we have got Aion Innovation Lab. Actually, the whole idea behind the lab is we get connected to the customer because we are driven by the consumer, and this innovation lab, it's all about making sure bringing all that feedback into what we do and how we build it. So interestingly, when we look at these surveys, PwC surveys, it's very much aligned to what we kind of hear in our day-to-day kind of engagement with customers, customer research, customer service. What we have been hearing from customer, it's very simple. It's basically what they say, guys, keep it simple, very convenient for us, and make it seamless. And let us help to make some intelligent choices, intelligent financial choices in life. That's everything which customers need. And I think our Aion kind of innovation lab is kind of very much actively working on that. And that's very much connected to these surveys when we look at it. Can you go to the next slide, please?
Kathy, I think we've lost Amir. Amilda, do you want to move forward to?
Yeah.
My
Apologies,
section?
everyone. We seem to have lost Amir. May have some internet issues. So what we can do is we can move to Zaid's presentation, and when Amir comes back in, he can continue after Zaid. That's the best thing to do.
Amir, you're back.
Can you hear me?
Amir, you're back. Thank you.
Apologies. I don't know what's going on with the network today. So can you hear me all good?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. All right. So I think if you think from financial institution
perspective, can any of our
perspective,
attendees just check as well?
Sorry, Kathy, say again. Yeah, all good. All good. We are hearing all good. Good stuff. So I think if you think from a financial institution perspective, it's our responsibility to build that trust with the customer. It's our responsibility to close that gap. So it has to be the way it has to be done. We need to redefine that model. That not only the operating model, but also the business model we work in, and how and what kind of a skill set do we need to enable this new world for our customers. So things about, in this new model, kind of things we need to really consider. Consumer or end customer should be at the heart of everything we do. So every decision we make should be revolving around them. Technology should take the driving seat. We just be focused on creating an ease, convenience, and delivering this unforgettable experiences to the customer, because that's what the differentiator is in the market right now. And also think about how can we really create some digital experience which do create really outcomes, the positive outcomes from financial services perspective, my financial life, into the real world. It's all about creating this transparency. It's all about accuracy. It's all about creating this seamless experience. Just imagine Uber. I know Uber perhaps not making too much money, but the consumer experience is really good. So it's all about how can we create something which is seamless, and I really don't have to think through this twice about using that service. It's all about those small things, things about, can I help customers to understand how they're, budgeting, how they do the financials, how they can really manage their money better, and how can they really be better off, using their kind of a services. For example, very simple, recent research, 18% of the customers, they are better off if their financial institutions giving them a very proactive, money management, advice, which is more, and I think in typical world we call it PFM, but in other words, basically how you manage and how you do, manage your or budgeting or financial kind of a management of your money. They are doing 18% better than rest of the kind of customers who are not, being given this kind of opportunity. So I think that's something we need to think through. It's a whole mindset shift, which we really have to build, and data is at the heart of that. If you go to the next slide, please. So I go through this in the next couple of slides very quickly, because it's all about, connecting that, how can we transform consumer experience while transforming our business model, shifting more towards digital, and how do we create trust on digital kind of capabilities. Very quickly, couple of points on this. If you think about very recent kind of a Gemini kind of a report, which says 9 out of 10 business leaders, they believe data is the 4th factor in their business now. So, basically bringing data equivalent to land, labor, and capital. And then the 4th one is data. And out of that research, 600 C-level execs, they believe the use of big data has improved their business performance by around 26%. And I think what they believe that this would increase to another 10% in the next couple of years or 3 years. So, and if you think about the power of data, everything you do with the customer, and at this stage, I'm just looking from outside in perspective. So, how customer sees the financial institution, everything you do with the customer, whether it's about customer products, customer services, acquisition, retention, customer satisfaction, performance management, even internal banks KPIs as well. They're all driven by data, and it's time to take action. The reason I say it's time to take action, my previous experience with banking industry as well, I'm sure everybody on the call as well would agree. If you think about the banks or financial institutions, they would have tons of data. Like, I don't think we are in shortage of data, but it's all about how we can turn that data into some actionable items which can benefit and improve customer outcomes, but at the same time improve our efficiencies in the organization. If you go to the next slide, please. So just kind of a very quickly, again, just to show you, how important and, where the focus is for most of the financial services globally. It's kind of globally, the data-driven banking models are becoming quite common. So the whole idea is to use power of data to enable this customer trust on technology-driven banking. There are multiple use cases. I think I've already kind of touched on those use cases in the past, in the previous slides as well. So things like, we understand our customers better, do better segmentation, products and services, how we can improve it, how we can align it better. And one of the most important, factors I want to talk about is personalization. And, I think it's a very repeated word in the industry, personalization, but we can just very quickly say, I just get it what I need and when I need it. I think that's what we need to do. So in order to do that, we need to come into this predictive banking. We need to really start thinking about data more and more. And I think we need to enable certain other type of banking models as well. Things like platform banking, banking as a service. Those models would bring in more innovation. And that's how we can start transforming the whole kind of business model for banking. Kathy, sorry, please, the next slide. So, it's always good to take some inspiration. I think I'm running a bit over time actually, so I just try to wrap it up pretty quickly. I think it's always good to take some inspiration from other industries. I think these names don't need any introduction. The whole idea is they are very successfully using this data, whether it's Amazon and whether it's Alibaba, or whether there are multiple kind of other kind of use cases which are being kind of, we all kind of experience almost every day. Only one thing I want to mention over here about Amazon, this convenience kind of stores, Amazon Go, which they tried to implement. Personally, I think it was a very exciting kind of, use case and very exciting opportunity for us to bring that trust on technology to the next level, for us to bring that, seamless experience for customer to the next level. I think that was the whole idea behind it. We should see, and we will see more and more of these kind of a trial and test coming into the industry very soon, actually, because the whole idea is the commerce becomes this invisible commerce, actually. And then you just basically achieve your goals in life, and just commerce just kind of follows you as you go along. So as I said, Amazon Go, awesome. If you think about other kind of examples, Spotify does this, Netflix does this, even there's a mattress, we're talking about retail now. So there's a, mattress manufacturer, they use AI in US, Sleep Number it's called, and they kind of do a lot more stuff around data and how they can enhance the consumer experience. There are multiple other examples from other industries which can bring in to take inspiration from them and how we can really transform the customer experience in banking. Next slide, please. So now I want to take you a bit closer, actually. Previously, I've given you these main examples from, more like big retailers, if you want to call it, and globally, and how they're using data to enhance consumer experience and also transforming how they do business. Now I want to bring you very much closer to GCC region. This is, I will be talking about a use case, a real life use case of Aion Hikma, our AI platform. Aion Hikma adds intelligence to digital banking. We kind of by providing surprise and delight to customer experiences. And basically the whole idea is to make banking, bring customer back into banking, right? Make it more personalized. The whole kind of a focus for Aion Hikma is around transform customer experience. Just reimagine how we kind of interact with customer and increase revenue for the financial institution. So I kind of set the context a bit. If you think about AI, if you think about Saudi Vision 2030, it's around 70% of their goals they are basically somehow related to either data or AI. That's kind of how important it is actually for the region. If you think about, I think there's another kind of research I was reading, 77%, banks in the UAE plan to use AI in the next 3 years. 374 million have been spent in AI actually in the region, last year. And if you think about how the big names actually in the region, GCC region, are using this AI, think about Emirates, NBD. I think they've committed 1 billion dirham to investment into this. Think about Mashfiq reduction of the, workforce by 10%. And most importantly, think about UAE government, kind of really reducing their cost base by 50%, actually just, introducing AI almost into every area they do. So what we are doing actually for one of our customers in the region, we are based on true AI, which is like deep learning. We are basically delivering this use case to a customer, understanding the whole data set on, who these customers are, what kind of behaviors they have, and how they are really utilizing bank services, and then predicting the next 3 kind of months, 6 months, 12 months, predicting on which customers are at risk of churn. And I think that's just the very first step into the pure deep learning AI. Actually, that's what we're kind of doing in the region. And we enable this customers of ours, very first kind of a bank enabled by AI, AI kind of a ready bank and moving into AI first bank. And this use case is kind of really at your doorstep. This is just the start. We have got multiple other use cases, things like cross-sell, upsell in the pipeline, working with that customer to make it happen, and obviously taking it to the other customers as well. So typically, if you think about it, even in the UK, the churn rate is very high. So because of that, 7 days guarantee kind of account change, it's around kind of 40-45% at the moment, right? If you think about GCC, because those opportunities are not available in the region, so churn rate is quite low, so it's around 7 to 8%. So what we have managed to build is, massive amount of predictability into the business and just saving massive amount of revenue by keeping those customers in and also suggesting them mitigation strategies for those customers. If you go to the next slide, please. So these are some of the outcomes, the highlights. The good news is that, it's a massive amount of work, as you can imagine, thinking about this, cloud-based kind of a solution, integrating it with the typical kind of a bank, and going through all this security, data layers, and etc. All of those kind of stuff. It took us quite a bit of time to get this right. But if you can imagine the return, ROI on this, it's phenomenal. So now what we have committed to the customer, it's 800% ROI on just this one use case. Our algorithms, when we talk about deep learning, it's 85% accuracy. I know we're saying over here 70%, but in reality it's 80% or 85% between. I think exactly it's 83.4% kind of accuracy coming in, and as we go along, we're going to be building more accuracy because the algorithm will learn and get more data, etc. 2 things: it's all about data quality, it's all about data diversity. If you get the right data and if you get the diverse data, and that's why it's really critical for banks and financial institutions to start digitizing their data, to start interacting with the customer using digital channels. The more and more they do using these digital channels, the more data or diverse data we have, and more technologies can help banks and customers to deliver more value to them. If you go to the next slide, please. I think I've only got 1 or 2 more slides. The whole, if I just kind of really put this lens for the next few years, actually, right? Just wanted to share some, thought processes on what the future would look like. Obviously we established one fact: data is the backbone. Data is the new currency, if you want to call it. But the whole idea is, with all these shifts, whether it's consumer behavior, technology, competition from fintechs or even big techs, the whole idea is that going forward, there's a very different type of, kind of a financial services industry we're looking at. Things like, if you just even pick 1 or 2 examples from here, things like augmented reality, for example. So there is augmented and virtual reality, but let's stick to augmented reality because it's much more easier to do. And also it's much more in use at the moment. So in US alone, around 30% of the population has been using both, augmented reality, kind of capabilities. And if you pull both augmented and virtual reality together, so it's up to 45% in the last year, the whole population, around 45% have been using these services. So it's kind of really coming our way. If you think about some innovative use cases around virtual, augmented reality especially, so think about Commonwealth Bank in Australia. They have got this kind of a property app. If you just kind of take a picture, it basically tells everything about that property. And I think they've got around 90% properties in that database. So it's basically making convenience for the customer. If you think about this, insurance kind of fintech in US, you can simply take a photograph of anything you want to insure, and just based on that one photograph, it's been insured basically. So again, the whole dynamics, technology is building that trust, and more trust we build, that's where actually it brings lots of enhanced customer experience, the delivery of value to them straight away, very personalized experience, and also at the same time improving financial institutions' operational capacities and also their kind of return on investment. If you go to the next slide, I think that's the last slide for me. So I think the whole idea is where to go from here. I don't think the fundamentals have changed. It still remains the same. It's all about how you can engage customer and how you can engage customer in a way that you become the primary financial institution for that customer. I think fundamental remains the same. The question is about how to make it happen. Traditionally, we've been trying to use, or we've been very much used to do other kind of methods, but now because of all of these market forces and consumer behaviors and consumer demands, I would say, of convenience, ease of use, tailored financial services via the channel of their choice, it's totally transforming how we achieve this goal. So in my head, if we say, what does success look like? It's all about innovation at scale. How you can do innovation at scale? It's whether you do it internally yourself, which is very costly, it would take a long time to do it, or you start building a partnership with a fintech, for example. And that's why these fintechs are so successful in building a partnership with financial services organizations. Because these fintechs have already experienced multiple kind of layers of complexities, and they've came over it. They already have a right solution. They can basically start coming in and start working with you and give you a very quick POC. And as soon as you do the POC, you go to the next level where you can start really making things happen rather than investing heavily internally and start building a capability capacity, which after a few years' time is all redundant. So I think just with this last comment, I would just kind of hand over to Zaid. I think Zaid would really now take us through some more details around, take us more deep dive into data and how data is enabling this inside out view for the financial organizations, right? On one side, we need to understand the customer, but at the other side, as soon as we start having multiple relationships with the customer, it's really important to, automating, these kind of processes on how we make this trust both ways, actually, not only from customer, but also from bank's perspective. So Zaid, over to you.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Amir, for setting the stage. Welcome, everybody. Good to be here with you. So as Kathy mentioned, Qarar is in the business of advanced analytics. So I'll be focusing on the role that analytics and automation play in digital banking. I'll cover a couple of use cases, and then I'll leave you with our thoughts on recommended next steps that you can take. But before we start, next slide, please, Amelda. I'll be adding my own spin to the effects of COVID-19 on digital banking. But first, let's agree that the need for digital services was not born out of the current crisis. I mean, the current crisis has definitely helped in accelerating that drive, especially within financial services. But the initiative has been going on for some time. I mean, we've already seen contraction in branch usage versus usage of digital channels. We've already seen a gradual decrease in the use of cash versus other forms of digital payment like Apple Pay. But the drive for digitization was usually fueled by the desire to improve profits, from a combination of increased revenue as well as lower operating costs. However, amongst the biggest drivers now for digital transformation we see is to transform the customer experience, because according to Forbes, 63% of consumers said that they will pay more for a great experience, especially those consumers of Gen Z and the millennials demand instant gratification and are willing to pay for it, as Amir also alluded to. Next slide, Amanda. So enter COVID-19. So the way we see it, COVID-19 served a number of purposes that are related to us. One is it served as a wake-up call for many of the late adopters, especially in our region, the GCC and Middle East. And it pushed them to play catch up and start realizing some of the great results that leading banks have been enjoying. I read somewhere that in China and Italy, only 4 weeks after the coronavirus broke, the increase in digital engagement shot up by 20% just in the first 4 weeks. The other thing that COVID did is that it brought in a new customer segment into the digital space, the 60 to 85 age bracket that many banks have traditionally lost hope in converting. These now are customers sitting at home and therefore forced to adopt digital channels. Banks need to now think about the digital needs of that entirely new segment. The biggest impact we see really is that it forced banks to start thinking and go beyond the most basic and common digital features, beyond authentication and quick balance checks and easy transfers. Now banks have started to follow a more needs-driven approach and forced to identify digital features that are relevant to their own base and relevant to their own market. Let's take, for example, in this financially stressed environment, a lot of the customers are now demanding from their banks digital services around credit terms, around the ability to apply for a late fee waiver or reduce the minimum payment or permission to skip a loan or apply for a payment holiday, etc. Next slide, Imelda. But regardless of whether it's a late adopter or an established digital bank, regardless of the impact of coronavirus, one thing we see that holds true is that in order to achieve this ideal desired level of, let's call it, digital proficiency, it requires a combination of advanced analytics as well as process automation. And it equally requires the focus to digitize not just the customer-facing touchpoints, but also the back-end business processes. But we know that not all business processes are created equal. So the benefits from automating a back-end process increases in direct proportion to the complexity of information that it uses and the number of decision points that it requires. According to one McKinsey report, they identified processes such as mortgage origination, SME account opening, credit card onboarding, as those that hold the highest value potential in terms of cost saving and productivity if digitized. And these include, automating processes such as the ones used by credit underwriters and loan officers, so that they can interact seamlessly during the loan application process. Equally, the dependency on analytics or model development plays a big role. Let's take, for example, risk models, which are key in pushing automatic decisions, especially in the gray areas of loan approval. There are many examples, and I'll come later on to a couple of use cases, but other examples of models that play a big role in digital banking are pricing models that allow banks to determine special offers that they want to push to high value clients and do that in real time. So I want to take a closer look now at these two components, analytics and then back-end decision automation, and how they fit into the digital strategy. But before we do that, I think we'll stop here for a quick fun poll. You want to bring it up? Kathy? So the question is, do you have predictive models supporting your digital journeys? Yes, no, partly, or not sure. We'll give it a few seconds. Okay. You want to show the results? So partly, okay. So that's consistent with what we've seen as well in the region, and brings us nicely to our next topic. So advanced analytics. Next slide, please. So advanced analytics, which in our definition covers the domains of predictive and prescriptive analytics. And these domains have been enabling really superior performance in organizations, especially those organizations that are willing to make proper commitment and investment in these tools. And banks and banking industry in general have been deploying advanced analytics for some time now to move their business forward. And usually it's one of the three reasons that they do that. One is to accelerate growth, such as in the area of sales management by applying things like propensity models and cross-sell models, or to improve risk management, such as in the area of credit underwriting by the use of PD models. But one of the biggest drivers recently has been for the delivery of a digital bank, or the delivery on the promise of a digital bank. And the reason why analytics has been able to play such a big role in digital banking is made possible, obviously, first by advances in technology. So we know that the availability of information that's available now for mining is booming, but also advances in analytical techniques have also improved considerably. Beyond the traditional linear regression techniques, we are now deploying machine learning models that use random forest techniques and other advanced algorithms. So really applying analytics truly can help deliver on the promise that digital banking makes, because it enables this enhanced customer experience, which we saw from studies is kind of one of the main drivers for customers and banks alike. So to achieve that, banks truly need to start gathering real-time data and use analytics to better understand the customer and build a proper journey. Next, please. But what we've seen from our experience and really working with a number of firms in this region, and maybe I think it would be a similar challenge, globally as well, is that a lot of firms seem to face a challenge in turning their analytical insights into business outcomes, and the challenge really comes because they want to figure out, how can I extract the full value from my analytical investment? And usually we've seen this happen because organizations miss planning for that final stage or the last mile, which is figuring out how these insights will be delivered, how will they deploy or be deployed, how will they contribute to the decision-making process. And this is where we feel and recommend that banks consider embedding automated back-end decision engines in every digital journey. And it's exactly why you always will hear Qarar say that every digital platform needs a powerful and robust decision engine in the background that can help it deploy the decision logic for any use case, be it a cross-sell opportunity or fraud detection or credit underwriting. And we've seen many banks and lenders and fintech, they embark on rolling out their digital platforms. They realize that these are brilliant digital platforms, but they focus a lot on the onboarding, on the authentication. But usually they don't come with the back-end decision engine sophistication that is required to achieve an end-to-end journey. For example, here kind of a digital lending journey, for example. Next, Amelda. So these decision engines, they need to come with a set of minimum features. First, they need to be user-friendly. allow the user to create, amend, implement rules and policies on the fly. They need to be able to support real-time decisions. They need to be able to deploy and support unlimited number of scorecards and models that are used across the organization. And they need to be able to support these models being developed in any language, whether it's R, Python, SAS, Excel, whatever. They also need to be able to call and receive data from third parties, and not just that, but also create new characteristics from this data. And it's these new characteristics that really drive the performance of these models. They need to also be able to configure any decision logic. What are the best terms to offer, the best price to offer, what action to take, what product to push. And obviously, they need to also be able to support cloud deployment and have open APIs, create one cohesive decision system. And this is why, and the main driver for why Qarar has partnered with Aion, so that we can integrate our decision engine, Decision Smart, with Aion's digital platform and offer a turnkey solution. Next. So let me give you two use cases. The first use case is a cross-sell use case, and this has been. We're going to stop for. So how big is the digital universe in 2020? Okay, I think should be a quick one. Kathy, I'll give you the right answer. I didn't know this, but the right answer is 44. Okay, fantastic. And that is, according to this, 21 zeros behind it. So quite a lot of data. And this can be achieved by all of the data from social media sites, banks, medical facilities, shopping platforms, etc. Fun fact. Thank you, Kathy. Moving to our use cases. So the first use case is a cross-sell use case. And we know that this is a top priority for a lot of clients in the region, and rightly so, because one McKinsey study shows that leading banks were able to achieve a digital cross-sell penetration of 49%. That's 5 times more than slow adopters. And they were able to achieve that by including features such as customized push notifications and personalized offers. In one use case, for a personal finance company that we've come across in Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, they were able to apply propensity models and capitalize on the use of third-party credit bureau data and combine that with internal CRM data, such as demographic data, client and product related data, and even digital behavior data, meaning when does the customer log in, what digital services they use. And they were able to use all of that information to create very fine micro segments, and then use those segments to push pre-approved offers to these individuals. They could even go further by tailoring the communication to each of these micro segments, so that setting the right tone of voice or the best time to contact the client, which really helped increase their sales while maintaining a high customer satisfaction, which is the key objective. The other use case looked at digital lending, and this is now a priority for banks, especially in our region here. And this includes the digital transformation of the entire end-to-end credit journey. And not just the customer experience, but also every single supporting credit decision point and credit decision process, because credit is so core to customer bank relationship that digitizing it offers significant competitive advantages to banks. When it comes to collateral-based lending, for example, such as mortgage origination, we know that this is a process that has the highest potential of gain if digitized, because the current process, as we probably all know, can take 10 to 15 days and can carry up to 45% of the origination costs with multiple touch points. In KSA alone, mortgages represent more than 51% of total retail credit. So there is no surprise that it has been one of the areas that have seen digitization even before COVID-19. What happened now after the current crisis is that the demand for digital credit also grew, whether on the collateral-based lending or not. In that successful use case, we found that the key here is to redesign the lending process from end to end and eliminate every single manual step. Because we found that without an end-to-end solution, banks will always see disappointing results. And this includes the framework for making credit decisions internally, including the full risk assessment process of the applicant in real time by using third-party sources such as credit bureaus and other governed public data, and developing very strong internal credit risk models, either by using internal data, but also capitalizing and using alternative data such as mobile device information or psychometric data to rate customers. Obviously achieve complete automatic decision making and offer a comprehensive product and offer capability so that they can put the right product to the right customer at the right time and offer him real-time approval or even approval in principle in the worst case. Next. So finally, I'll leave you with some parting words and recommendations. From our opinion, to capture the full opportunity of digital transformation, we feel that banks need to first focus on those processes that can benefit the most from digitization and bring in analytics because it has a high impact. Digital transformation, we feel, can only happen when AI is embedded to support both the back end process, but also the customer facing functions. The second step is to set the right technology roadmap. I know that not every bank or lender has the luxury of starting from a clean page. So some trade-off is involved, between cutting-edge technology and legacy systems. There's one survey done by Cornerstone that showed that 70% of banks said that their institution's current infrastructure was one of the key barriers to digital transformation. And finally, and I think that's something a lot of you have already heard, which is the importance of change management or creating that buy-in and adoption inside the organization across all levels, starting from executives, but also IT and business. That same survey also showed that corporate culture was another barrier to transformation. A lot of organizations said that they were very dissatisfied with progress, especially surprisingly in credit underwriting. And they've cited reasons like insufficient cooperation between teams and limited availability of data or limited availability of talent. So thank you very much. We hope that was helpful. We hope that once COVID crisis passes, organizations don't take their feet off the digital transformation pedal and continue building on this momentum. I think now we're going to move to a Q&A session. Kathy, back to you.
Yeah, thank you, Said. Thank you, Amir. And that was really interesting. And when I was doing a bit of research for this webinar, I found that according to the research we found, 90% of all data was created only in the past 2 years. I think it was research done by IBM, and that was about 5 years ago. And it was expected to increase exponentially. So we could say we are in that exponential increase right now. So the potential for leveraging such a massive amount of data through advanced analytics cannot be underestimated. And especially for banks who've got their sights set on completely embracing the digital revolution. So we are going to move on to our Q&A. So if you do have any questions for either Amir or Zaid, please type them in the Q&A box now. I think we have a couple of questions there already. So while you're typing, let's look at our questions. So we've got a question from Sheikh Ibrahim. Do you expect the same level of digital commitment post-COVID-19 from both customers as well as organizations? That's a really interesting question. And let's hand that over to Amir.
Yeah, thanks, Kathy. As you said, a very interesting question, to be honest. I think to be honest, it's very difficult to predict. But one thing which I can say, based on recent McKinsey kind of a report, the senior execs, they believe that what we have achieved in the last, let's say, 12 to 16 weeks is kind of equivalent to 5 years of acceleration in digital transformation, right? So basically, just imagine, obviously it's a calamity, it's a challenge, but the research is showing that what we have achieved in the last 16 to 18 weeks, for example, it's almost equivalent to 5 years kind of acceleration to the digital transformation. So whether we can sustain that kind of acceleration kind of a point, I don't think that's possible. Whether there would be a new baseline, yes, I think there would be a new baseline, because because I think we are still in the middle of it, to be honest. I think it hasn't been, we can't say it's over yet. We are in the middle of it. So I think it depends on multiple factors, how long it would stay, because typically changing behaviors take a bit of a time. And at the same time, technology needs to catch up as well. Because I know for a fact, working with lots of local GCC customers, we still have got so much kind of a broken journeys and broken kind of SLAs actually with the customer. So I think we need to fix all of those basics actually, where we can start building that trust with the customer and technology. So I think it would be somewhere in the middle. We would still continue to increase that digital transformation, but not at the pace which we are doing right now. I think the pace would be much more slower as compared to today. But yes, I think the journey would continue. And I think by that time, we would have, for example, if you think about in US, we have converted around 20% more customers to digital now. And I'm talking about banking. There are multiple sectors have got multiple numbers, but we have converted more 20% additional customers to digital kind of only customers now. So I think the journey has started, but it might not be kind of going in the same pace and with the same acceleration. It would slow down a bit.
Okay, thank you, Amir. Thank you for sharing. Let's check the questions. Okay, we have a question for Zaid. What is the possible extent of full automation?
So we'd like to think that there is no limitation to full automation. I mean, the technology and the availability of data will help achieve full-time, real-time decisioning. I mean, especially take the lending or digital lending space. Some banks do achieve entirely full automation, even in terms of handling documents, authentication, onboarding, digital signatures. I think the only limitation comes with the level of comfort from the bank side, how much they want to rely on complete full automation, as well as any limitations that are created by regulation, for example.
Okay. Thank you, Zaid. We have some more questions coming. We have a question from Amir Lodi. Amir's from Amex in Saudi. He wants to know, do you have use cases for digitizing servicing journeys for card issuers? And these servicing journeys would include analytics-driven CRM offers. Who would like to take this question? Amir or Zaid?
Zaid, do you wanna pick up this question?
Sure. I mean, we have a number of use cases across the region, not just for credit card onboarding, but really across all of the products. Mortgages has been growing at a very high rate, and that these journeys include everything from what Aion tries to do, which is the onboarding piece, the KYC piece, the authentication piece, and then a complete decision automation in the background, supported by automating all of the credit policies, automating all the different products that you can service the client with, identifying the client's share of wallet with other banks based on his credit bureau data, trying to figure out and validate his income coming from public sector data, and then bringing all of that information to immediately not just provide him with the offer that is more suitable for him based on his risk and affordability, but also suggesting other products that he could potentially take up based on similar profiles with other customers.
I think Zaid, just to add on to that, I think if I understood the question correctly, I think there's a second part of the question as well, which saying, how these servicing journeys would include analytics-driven CRM offers. So, the use case I talked about, this AI-driven use case about customer retention, right? It has got a very strong element of, customer retention strategies. And what we are talking to one of our customers right now is to have a very strong integration between that, our AI, like Hikmah platform, with their CRM kind of a solution, just to make sure all of those core mitigation strategies or, these servicing journeys, if in other words, if you want to call it, based on the data, we do provide that insight to the CRM solution. So we can talk to the customer at the right channel, at their convenience, and help them to, again, achieve better consumer experience and also towards retention as well. So I think there is a kind of a play for AI into this space as well, and how we can enable that conversation with the customer at multiple touch points.
Okay. Thank you, Amir. Now I'm just having a quick glance at the clock. We have overrun our webinar slightly, but if our attendees would like to stay with us, I think we've got time for just one more question. So the question is, how does the competition on products and analytics compare particularly with the more mature markets like UK challenger banks and fintechs? Are there lessons that can be learned?
So from our experience, I mean, some of the advantages that advanced markets have that I'm sure, Amir will touch on as well is, open banking. Open banking opens a huge space for innovation, for access to new forms of data that can help even dive deeper into analyzing the customer and understanding his profile and needs. And I think once that kind of infrastructure is available in our region, there is so much more kind of fuel that can be fed into analytical models that can help achieve, even greater things with the predictions.
Yeah, so Zaid, just to add on to that, actually, a really good start. I think definitely, obviously, some, as you said, some mature, I think the question is from Forum. So obviously some mature markets are far ahead, from infrastructure perspective, from the data, data kind of a collection perspective, data synthesis perspective, ingestion perspective. So I think there's some kind of you can say head start for those kind of mature markets. I think GCC is kind of a catching up. And again, I go back to our kind of recent experience with one of the, data-driven products we have, which is the AI platform. We are the first one to bring, let's say, a cloud-based solution, or we are one of the first ones to bring that cloud-based solution to the region and to the country as well. So, and again, we have to go through quite a bit of a, I would say, painful journey, because just a very simple example, for example, AWS Bahrain still haven't got the all kind of a data analytics kind of tool set, if you want to call it, which are necessary to deliver this kind of advanced analytics actually using a kind of a cloud kind of environment. So there are certain kind of, when you talk about comparison actually, so there are certain things which are kind of already becoming a baseline in more mature markets. And I think from GCC perspective, the drive is there, the kind of, I think vision is there, And I think it would take some time for us to, kind of achieve that kind of a baseline as compared to the mature markets. From products perspective, I think just want to tag on to your kind of, or add on to your kind of point, Zaid, around open banking. Again, open banking has created a very different type of competition and innovation in the market, and different countries are doing very differently. Obviously, US is taking a lead on that, and Europe is obviously doing a lot more in that space. But I think the whole idea is it's kind of now becoming, starting from Bahrain again. I think Bahrain's regulators are very kind of forward-looking and progressive as well. So I think starting from Bahrain, it's kind of coming into play. And then we are hearing that it would kind of really move forward to other key countries like Saudi and kind of other kind of countries as well in the region. And as soon as we start opening open banking into the region, we have, kind of will become this kind of, in other words, my favorite word is kind of, we sit on gold actually, right? So data is a gold. So we basically believe that would be a goal for, financial institutions, but at the same time, it would be a goal for customers as well, because we're going to start bringing in all those innovative use cases to enhance experience and give this seamless financial kind of service to the customers. I think that's the whole kind of idea behind it.
Thank you, Amir. Thank you. That's great. We really are out of time now. So just before we close out our session, if we didn't get to your question, then connect with us directly and we'll be happy to answer any other questions that you have. So I'd just like to give thanks to both Amir and Zaid for sharing their knowledge and insights with us today. We do apologize for any audio glitches. The internet's not always our friend, but we will certainly review any messages on the recording that were not clear, and we will put it onto our LinkedIn pages, onto our website for any very important insights that we need to share with you. So I'd also like to thank Amelda Patili, who's the head of marketing for Aion, for collaborating and putting this webinar together and supporting behind the scenes as our co-host today. Most of all, I'd like to express a huge thank you to all of you, to all of our attendees. And I hope you enjoyed this webinar and you gained some useful insights that will help your company take more steps forward in your own digital transformation journey. So this is actually our very first webinar, and we have a lot more knowledge to share with you, and we really look forward to connecting with you all again in the near future. So thank you again, and depending on your time zone, I wish you all a good morning, good day, or good evening ahead. Goodbye.
Thank you very much. Thank you everyone for dialing in. It was a pleasure talking to everybody.
Thank you.